Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Some people think they can have it all. Today on rSpace, even the most carefully laid plans can unravel spectacularly. Wife's affair partner dumped her after our divorce. Now she's alone and broke while I moved on. I, 36 male, have been married to who I thought was a loving and attentive wife for 5 years. Now, I know who she truly is. But when I met Mary, I thought she was perfect. She was warm and kind, and we got along instantly. She didn't seem like the type that could stab me in the heart. Guess I was wrong. I honestly thought we were going to go the distance. I mean, I married her after all. Before her, I was the type of guy who was scared of commitment, never wanting to tie myself down. She changed all of that about me. We were even getting ready to start a business together. Mary has always wanted to have her own bakery. She loves baking almost as much as she hates her current job. I wanted to support her. So we spent years turning it into a reality. We drew up a business plan and set aside a sizable chunk of our savings to make it happen. It was mostly for her, but it was supposed to be something we built together. Then I found out she wasn't even invested in a future with me. It started with the usual signs. She was distant, always on her phone, and always making excuses to go out and come home late. For some time, I thought I was imagining things, seeing patterns where there were none. But what really convinced me was the fact that she'd suddenly get all attentive out of nowhere. It would have been nice, but it always felt off. It was almost excessive. Suddenly intimacy out of nowhere, random I love yous, and even breakfast in bed a few times. It was hard to enjoy it when I had the growing feeling that she was feeling guilty about something. I think she started to realize that I was catching on to her because one day she just stopped. No more of the forced affection, no more trying to make me feel special. She started withdrawing even more, and soon, we felt like strangers. At that point, I was certain that she was cheating on me. At the very least, there was something seriously wrong with our relationship. The idea of her cheating on me broke my heart, but I couldn't just sit around wallowing. If she was being unfaithful, then I wanted to take action immediately. But first, I needed to make sure I wasn't just being paranoid. But I couldn't just ask her outright if she was cheating on me. She'd just deny it, and then she'd get more careful about it. I either needed to catch her red-handed or get some solid proof. So, I started looking for proof. I'm not the type of guy to snoop through my wife's phone or email, but those were special circumstances. I think the normal rules don't apply when you're 95% sure that your wife is cheating on you. So I didn't feel a twinge of guilt when I pulled her phone away from the charger when she was deep asleep. I tried to unlock her phone and got hit with the first hurdle. She'd changed her passcode. I tried her passcode, our passcode again, but it didn't work. Now I was certain she was cheating. We've been sharing the same phone passcode since before we got married, so finding out she'd quietly changed it was a neon red flag. I plugged her phone back in, thinking that I'd been defeated for now. I was trying to come up with another way to find evidence when I decided to try the fingerprint unlock. No luck. She'd removed my fingerprint access from her phone too. Now, I was itching to see what she was hiding. I was sitting on my side of the bed when the obvious idea hit me. I could try using her fingerprint to unlock her phone. It wouldn't be easy, especially if her hands were in an awkward position. There wasn't much chance I would wake her since she sleeps pretty deeply, but it was still a risk. I went back around to her side of the bed, and one of her hands was up near her face. Her thumb was turned out just enough that I was able to press it gently against her fingerprint sensor. When her phone unlocked, I went into the bathroom and locked the door behind me. When I found what I was looking for, I felt my entire body go cold. It would have been better if she was just cheating on me. This was so much worse. She was cheating on me with some guy called Shane, and they were making plans to cut me out and live together. She'd checked out of our marriage already, and she was only waiting around so we could launch her bakery business. She planned to fight for it in the divorce and use that to fund her new life with Shane. I felt sick. I wasn't just a victim, I was a mark. My wife was trying to use me as a stepping stone to launch a new life with a new man, and I'd be left with nothing. I scrolled through their every message. They were filled with disgusting details of their affair, but they mostly talked about what they planned to do with my money. Shane was fully on board with this. He encouraged her to be patient, play the long game before she made her move. They both agreed that the best time to strike would be when the bakery was just taking off. He insisted that I was too soft to fight for it. Mary told him that I'd give her whatever she asked for. According to her, it was a done deal that I'd hand over the business when we split up. I can't explain the feelings that went through me seeing them describe me as some pathetic doormat. It was a sickening feeling in my stomach, but soon it was replaced by rage. They thought I was weak? I'd just hand everything over? I'd show them. The first thing I did was collect as much evidence as I could. I exported the entire chat log and emailed it over to myself, along with every single photo and screenshot they'd ever sent each other. I even recorded the times and dates of all their phone calls. The next thing I did was wake up Mary. She wanted to play the long game? I was going to take that from her. It was game on, right here, right now. I shook her roughly awake. She was startled and sat upright, then blinked at me. She rubbed her eyes and asked me what was wrong. I tossed her the phone over to her and told her to tell me for herself. Her eyes widened when she saw the phone was unlocked, and she realized she was caught. Even in the dimly lit room, I could see her go pale. She stammered that she didn't know what I was talking about. I told her to cut the crap. I explained that I saw her messages with Shane, and I went through everything. She opened her mouth to talk a few times, but nothing came out. I continued with my voice rising steadily. I accused her of plotting with another man to take everything from me, my money, my business, my trust. For what? Some random loser? Mary shook her head frantically, and tears started falling. She asked me to let her explain, and I started saying that there was nothing serious between them. It was all just a joke, she claimed. I was almost screaming at that point, but I tried to keep my voice steady. I asked her how playing me for a fool and sleeping with another guy was a joke. She joked about screwing me over and running away with my hard-earned money. I told her that her long game had come to an end. We were done, and she was leaving the house in the morning. Now, she was ugly crying loudly. It pissed me off. I turned around so I wouldn't have to look at her. She got out of bed and ran over to me. She started begging me, giving me all the classic lines. She said we could fix this and that she had made a mistake. I didn't give her a response. I just left her in the room sobbing. She left the next morning, though she didn't make it easy. She begged and pleaded and did everything she could to get me to change my mind. But I was done with her. I didn't even feel safe with her in the house anymore. I hadn't slept a wink the night before. When she left, she didn't tell me where she'd be going. I had a pretty good idea that she was off to stay with her affair partner, though. I tried not to care, but I can't say it didn't hurt me. I was ready to be done with her, but this betrayal was still fresh. I knew that I might probably break down if I really sat down and thought about what had happened, so I kept myself busy. I got to work looking for a lawyer. I've found a good one, and we're still discussing my options. I'm also interested in the possibility of pressing fraud charges against her and her affair partner if I can. Whatever the options are, I'm not letting her get away with this. She fully expected you to laugh off the fact that she was planning to screw you over financially and get away with it. I'm glad you're already working with a lawyer, OP. You need to pursue fraud charges. I hope she doesn't get a dime from you. She was fully using you. In her mind, you were already out of the picture. Just a means to an end. Update. I wasted no time springing into action. Mary was out of my house, and now I wanted her out of my life for good. When I finally picked out a lawyer and got him up to date on the situation, he was optimistic. He told me that there was almost no chance of making fraud charges stick since she hadn't successfully carried out any financial harm. I won't lie, I was a little disappointed to hear that. I felt a bit better to hear that their little plot would work firmly on my side in the divorce settlement. I made sure my lawyer and I were on the same page about the divorce. I wanted him to go all in. She'd tried to take everything from me. Now it was time to return the favor. I filed for divorce immediately, citing infidelity as the primary cause. As soon as Mary was served with the divorce papers, she called me. She told me that she wouldn't sign the papers and we needed to talk things out first. I said there was nothing to talk about and advised her to just sign the papers. There was no point in dragging things out. She couldn't stop things by refusing to sign. She'd just make the process more complicated for both of us. All she'd accomplish would be pissing me off. Even with that warning, she still took her sweet time. I called her a few times to ask if she'd signed the papers, and she tried to take the opportunity to get me to talk to her. After the third time, I caught on and realized she was just trying to get me to keep calling her. So I humored her. I asked her how she was doing, and she seemed relieved that I was finally giving her a chance. She started telling me about how tough this whole situation had been on her. She was having trouble sleeping, she felt like her world was falling apart, and she didn't know how to move on without me. I choked down a bitter laugh. She was really playing the victim here. Unbelievable. When I'd let her ramble on long enough, I asked her a question. "Are you staying with Shane?" There was a silence on the other end that told me everything I needed to know. I could imagine the gears turning in her head. She was wondering whether to lie to me. Maybe I'd found out somehow. I could have hired a private detective for all she knew. When she finally spoke, it was in a voice quiet with guilt. Or shame, maybe? She admitted that she was with Shane, but only because she had nowhere else to go. I called her BS and mentioned her siblings. She had single friends in town, too. Her mom lived less than 2 hours away, but she was shacked up with her lover and still had the nerve to ask me to take her back. I asked her if she really expected me to believe that she didn't have anywhere else to go. She stammered, trying to explain, but I cut her off. I told her that I didn't care what she did. They were grown-ups, and she wasn't going to be my wife for much longer. I told her to do whatever she wanted as long as she signed the dang papers. I heard the waterworks starting on the other end and cut the call immediately. I didn't want to deal with all of that. Something I said had gotten to her because she signed the papers the next day. With the process underway, I could already feel a sense of relief. Soon, I would be free of Mary and her attempts to steal my hard work. I dreamed of the day the divorce would be finalized the way a kid dreams of his next birthday. When that day came, it was almost as satisfying as I'd imagined. It turns out that adultery and conspiring to defraud your spouse don't look good in a divorce court. She walked away with almost nothing. The money that had been saved up for the bakery was split according to contribution, which meant that I got pretty much all of it. So much for their grand plan of stealing the business from me. I didn't care to bother trying to keep up with how Mary was doing after the divorce, but she told me herself. Only a couple of nights after it was finalized, my now ex-wife called me, obviously drunk and upset. She was crying and slurring while she told me that she didn't need my money. She claimed things were going to work out with her and Shane. He's a smart guy, according to her, and they had big plans. I just sat and listened to her ramble. I was mostly out of morbid curiosity. It felt like I was watching a train wreck. She said that she and Shane would make it work and that she was already happier with him than she ever was with me. I didn't believe that for a second. It was pretty obvious that she was not taking the divorce outcome well. A happy woman doesn't call her ex to gloat while she's stupid drunk. She was so drunk that I couldn't make out a lot of what she said. She was in no condition to argue with, so I didn't even bother saying anything to her. I just said, "That's nice, Mary," and went about my day. She didn't reach out to me for a while after that. Maybe she remembered the phone call when she sobered up and was embarrassed to speak to me. Or perhaps she just wanted to focus on making things work with Shane. Either way, she was out of my hair, and I had the time to start focusing on moving on. It's not easy to pick up your life after something like that. There was a part of me that became paranoid. It's hard to trust anyone in your life after discovering your own wife was plotting against you. It took some work for me to move past that, but she wasn't ready to let me forget about her just yet. I heard from one of my friends that she wasn't doing too well. From what he'd heard from a mutual friend, it seemed Mary was close to broke, and she was bitter. Some of her friends had stopped hanging around her because she'd become a negative person to be around. She was always complaining about how she'd lost everything and how she'd had her business stolen out from under her. I wasn't surprised to find out she was blaming everyone except herself. But there was more. She and Shane were done, and from what I'd heard, he was the one who broke up with her. According to Mary's friend, she'd expected them to take their relationship seriously after the divorce was finalized. Instead, he'd started drifting apart from her. Mary had tried to get things to work, but he eventually dumped her and kicked her out. It was pretty obvious to me what had happened. The whole time, Shane had just viewed her as a financial asset. The whole reason he had insisted on her playing the long game was because he wanted a woman with a ready-made business. When he saw that she came away with nothing significant from the divorce, he lost interest. He was nothing but a male gold digger who destroyed my marriage because he was looking for an easy payout. There was a part of me that still wished I could have hit him with fraud charges just to make him pay for what he did, but I didn't dwell on those thoughts. Moving on meant putting both Shane and Mary out of my mind. My friend warned me that she might try reaching out again now that she was single and desperate. Sure enough, she did. She called me a few times, but I didn't entertain her. I had no reason to. She thought she could betray me and come out on top. Now she was alone and broke and trying to suck me back into her life. She didn't deserve a second thought from me. I kept myself busy after the divorce. I'm pretty grateful that I had some good friends to help me with move on. They kept me from sitting around at home and wallowing. I threw myself into my work and poured my energy into building something meaningful for myself. Now that the savings we'd set aside from the bakery were in my hands, I wanted to find a way to put them to good use. So I started building a business that aligned with my passions. It hasn't been an overnight success, but the journey of building something has been rewarding enough. Long story short, I've been so busy that I haven't had time to dwell on Mary. Of course, Shane wasn't in this for her. He was in it for the money. The moment he saw that she came out of the divorce with nothing, he dropped her. She went from conspiring to steal your business to being left with absolutely nothing. Just as it should be. People like her deserve to stew in their consequences. What would you have done if you were in a situation like this? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.